Hey, Jordan.
Hey, bitch.
You're so fucking rude.
I know.
Right, this off
I,
so we can do it for real. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Just taking things a day at a time.
Yeah.
It's so cliche, but that's the truth.
No, I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. Ready? You ready for your 5 questions?
No, but here I am.
Here we are. No, I mean, so just background for the girls. We've known each other for
2 minutes.
at least two. Okay, I was trying to do something. He's like, I don't even know you. It's so dynamic. If people wonder, we can never be serious. No,
Right.
I've known you for 3 years, right? I think we met. Do you remember the first time we met?
I knocked over your coffee. And
Yes.
it blow up on me. Like, it was full. I was like, oh, shit.
Where was that? That was in Texas?
No, I think it was.
It was Arizona, I think.
Oh, that makes sense. Yes, that does make sense.
Anyway, it was one of those places. But I truly wasn't mad, even though I really wanted that coffee. We've known each other for about that length of time, so like 2-3 years essentially. And then we went to New York. Was WrestleMania that year, right?
Yeah, that was just 2 years ago.
Oh, it's been too long.
I know.
And then that infamous insert footage here.
Show me that chicken, eat that chicken, suck it dry.
Eat that chicken, suck it dry. So you ready for the actual 5 questions? None of those were the questions.
That wasn't it?
No, it was.
Okay. I'm
No,
ready.
So the first question's an obvious one, right? But like, how did you get into wrestling? Tell us the story.
It actually entails my sister, who's pretty much like my mom. She's like 13 years older than me. So one day, like, we were in the living room and she had turned it on and she was screaming and raving about Stone Cold Steve Austin and how he was, a legit ass white boy. And mind you, we were like in upstate New York at the time. So it was, to me, it was just, ugh. Um, but the reason why I got hooked to wrestling, ironically, was actually through Sable. I saw her on the screen and I was like, oh, that's how I feel like inside. A whore. So, no, seriously, she was the one who kind of like latched my interest because I've never really saw like a female figure that was just so popular and polarizing and doing things that I've never seen before. So, yeah.
And this is not one of the 5 questions, but is there anything that sticks out to you of your early years watching it that like kept you hooked?
Yeah, so it's weird. Like, I wasn't like a devout fan. Like, I was watching weekly and like, I didn't start that until I remember seeing like Rikishi and Lita on the screen. And from there, it was just like, oh, bitch, I got to tune in every week because this shit is just crazy. Like, it was so different than like, having the older brother who was into strictly like your typical sports like basketball and football. And for me, that stuff was boring, especially like growing up legitimately diagnosed as like ADHD. It was hard for me to stay focused on, things that actually interested me. And wrestling was the one thing that I was committed to, understood, was able to process, and just kind of caught on.
Tell me about a time in your life that was difficult, and what you learned from that.
If you know about me, you've known that I have like a special relationship with death. And what I mean by that is I've, from a very early age, I've kind of understood what death was, just because I've had, in the span of a year, I've lost my mom, I lost, and her two sisters, my aunts. And it just had a tremendous effect on me, through depression and just feeling, I don't know, it was just very dark. My mom passed away from cancer, and then literally like a month later, her oldest sister, my aunt passed away from a freak accident with, with her insulin and diabetes, and then my other aunt passed away from a heart attack. I say that it happened from sadness because her sisters were gone and whatnot, but the hardest thing about that was my grandmother, having to bury 3 of her daughters in the same year and seeing the effect that it had on her.
Mm.
And also just not being able to physically be there for my grandmother just because of, me being in school and whatnot. But that was the hardest thing that I've ever had to process and deal with. And not gonna lie, like that shit still is something that I'm processing and dealing with now as an adult. Those things don't go away. There's days that I am in bed or just completely closed off and isolate myself. But I understand that those are things that I need to do to be able to cope and process with the just shit that I've been through in my life. So.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And, I'm sorry that you had to experience that. I think one of the things that has bonded us is we've talked a lot of times offline, outside of our Jacqueline and Fable personas, about depression and anxiety and all those difficulties that come with it, suicidal thinking, all those things, which can be difficult to talk about because I don't think anybody wants to be labeled as crazy or broken, right? But I think to your point, so many people and so many members have been open about it, dealing with those things. And I think there was one thing you just said that was really important, sort of, and correct me if I got this wrong, feeling like you need to sort of withdraw or stay in bed all day and not making that a bad thing, right? Like that's
Right.
a necessary way to cope, right? A lot of times there's this guilt that you feel like I just don't have the energy. I just don't want to see people. I don't even want, like, I want to live, but I don't want to be here.
Right. The takeaway is, everybody has their own coping mechanisms. What somebody may seem as detrimental to somebody's progress for themselves may not work for somebody else. Like for me, that's how I reset and I energize and I make sure that I'm able to authentically be myself in these other situations by regressing and isolating. So that way, when it's time for me to step up and step out and be myself, I already know, like, yes, girl, you got this.
The third question is sort of related, but a lot of members and a lot of fans will talk about wrestling being a coping strategy, right? Or being that like positive thing in their life. Talk to me about that. Has wrestling been that for you over the years? If so, how? If not, how not?
So it's funny that you say that because there's one thing that I
Wait 1 second. There's a Popeye commercial right behind you.
Oh.
Show me that chicken, eat that chicken, suck it dry.
Show me that chicken. Sorry. Back to
I was gonna say there's one thing that I use as my own personal form of medicine, so to speak, my own form of therapy that's not clinical, that's not that's not actual treatment, and that's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I use that like when my mom had first passed away. She didn't come back. Funny.
What happened?
When my mom passed away at first, I was distraught. I was in college, and I would, watch these Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, just look at the family dynamics. And that's what really helped me and just realize things are going to be okay through the laughing, through just helping me process emotions that I didn't even know I had. With that said, wrestling has helped me just be comfortable with ironically, the balance between my masculine and feminine side. Growing up, I thought that I had to be super hyper masculine. So I hid behind this idea of, if I like wrestling, like But even though I tune in for the women, that it's a mask over like what I'm really trying to emote.
Mm-hmm.
So for the longest time, it was, oh yeah, my favorite wrestler is Umaga. Right, like, but the men would pick up on the conversations, and then that's how it would like start sparking friendships.
Got it.
And that changed when Trish and Lita and well, I had like a whole shrine of like Trish photos. I used to work at Walgreens, and I used to develop photos, like copyrighted photos, for my room right before I left for the day. My wall, literally like just Trish Stratus, the freedom of her being able to express herself and the love that she receives from being herself. That, in a nutshell, is kind of how wrestling's helped me to just find that balance of what I feel is right with how I present myself as either masculine or feminine, and being okay with it regardless.
I think of the Sunny Kisses and the Jake Atlases now, who have been so open about like talking about the reason they watch, right? Like they did, no shade to the men, but like it was the Trishas, the Litas, the Naomis that really inspired them. So that brings me to my next question, and I'm going through puberty at this exact moment. But what's in the throat? So, so my next question is, talk to me about like LGBTQ representation in wrestling. What is your feeling about how our community is represented now in the sport?
It's amazing seeing somebody like Sunny Kiss or Jake Atlas, Effie. Those characters are instrumental. I can guarantee you that if I had that visibility when I was younger, I wouldn't be in the same career path that I have now. I would have been like, I see myself in that person. I'm going to do this for a living.
So my last question, talk to me about, a time in your life over the last few years that has brought you a lot of joy and a moment that you hold dear to your heart.
It's legitimately the group. Growing up, I've always just felt out of place. And no matter what group I was in, hell, even at home, I felt out of place. It wasn't until, and bless his little heart, my little Russian sister Elon invited me to an undisclosed group.
What group is this?
And I just fell in love. I fell in love with the fact that, bitch, I'm not alone. I've never been alone. Like, there's been so many people that feel just like me, that love wrestling, are unapologetic, are so passionate about the characters and the wrestlers that we invest in. So finding these groups where we can be ourselves and elevate others has been the single most greatest blessing that I think I've had in my life. No cap, because from here I've made some incredible friendships. I've had an incredible relationship through the group, and this is just the beginning, which is crazy to think. We're just getting started.
Ooh. Well, that was how painful was that? That was the final question. No, but thank you, Jordan. I appreciate it. I couldn't think of a better person to help me kick this off. And the hope is that we can do these weekly and feature a new person. So
that's good. That's good. Look, it's all about community. That's the difference between us and these other groups, is we have a legit community. Like that's what it is. I
want to just.
I felt it, but I'm gonna hold it back.
I'm gonna put a disclaimer. LPWC Plus does not endorse. Well, thank you. No. Let me stop the recording now, but I appreciate it. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let's stop this shit. Stop recording.